Hey guys, so this video was originally going to be just a top 10 horror remakes video, just like any other list that I make on this channel. But then I'll get into specifically what happened, but basically I was just consumed with this emotion of disappointment, I guess, in the horror genre, and I feel bad complaining because I feel like we are in such a good era for the horror genre, but at the same time there's no questioning that we are in the era of remakes. So I felt like today we just had to do a little bit of a rant also, and then I will share my top 10 horror remakes with you. But first, a message from our sponsor today. Today's video is sponsored by Shudder. Big shout out to them because they are easily one of my favorite streaming services that I use. I love their live streaming option. The other night I watched Prom Night, the original, and I like that it's like a live TV situation. So if you don't know what to watch, you just pop on some live Shudder and see what they're playing, and they have different channels too of like different genres. I think it's really cool, and everything on there is all horror, suspense, thriller, all of that good stuff, and it's only $4.99 a month, or you can choose to pay $49.99 for the year. It has the largest and fastest growing human curated selection for horror and thriller, and you can stream ad-free on all of your devices. And if you click on the link in the description and use the code POSSESSED30, you will get a 30-day free trial on Shudder, so you can watch tons and tons of movies and shows and just tons of horror content in 30 days. So the reason why I decided to do a rant in addition to my top 10 horror remakes is I saw that they released the trailer for the new CG remake of The Addams Family. And the reason why this made me so irritated is, granted, I love The Addams Family. I grew up watching the movie and I generally like it. It's not my favorite thing in the world, but I like it, sure. My issue is, how many times are we gonna do Addams Family? How many different ways? And of course it's CG. I just feel like there's nothing original about it, and so this kind of sparked this conversation with my boyfriend about how things are just, it's like a guaranteed cash grab, right? It's a guaranteed knock it out of the park situation because of the hype around the existing content of The Addams Family. And that goes for everything. If there is a movie that is successful in the theaters, then they're gonna wanna make something either just like it, aka a remake down the road, or they're gonna wanna make a sequel to it. So not only are we in the era of remakes, but we're also in the era of sequels, and I think this is because directors hold on to that hype from the first film, especially if it does well, or it's the hype within the pop culture community, you know, like Addams Family. Who doesn't like Addams? I mean, I'm sure there's people who don't, but you know, Addams Family is very well loved in pop culture, and so it's a guaranteed they're at least gonna make back their money and at least gonna make a decent profit on it. Just this year, we have The Addams Family, It Chapter 2, Pet Sematary, and then we also have sequels, which It Chapter 2 is technically a remake and a sequel, so that's like double whammy, although I'm excited for it. And then sequels this year, we have 3 from Hell, Glass, Happy Death Day to You, Doctor Sleep, 47 Meters Down Uncaged. Yes, they're doing another one of those movies, which I really enjoyed the first one, just saying. And of course, another Annabelle movie, because we haven't gotten enough of the Conjuring franchise yet, which I think that is exhausted. Like, that franchise, don't get me wrong, I was a fan of in the beginning. Conjuring 2, still probably the best one out of the whole thing, and I was very excited for The Nun. That disappointed me, and I'm also still excited for The Crooked Man if that ever becomes a thing. But how many Annabelles do we need? I feel like we're just getting tired of this, you know, need to create more and more within a franchise, and even make it a franchise. It doesn't need to be a franchise because we're too scared to let go of the things that we know and love and embrace new content. But I know that we can do it because we have with Jordan Peele. There are so many great original movies coming out this year. I do not want to discount that. We have some cool things, but a lot of the stuff that we're getting this year is either a remake or a sequel or something made from a book. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. We have tons of Stephen King adaptations coming out this year. I think 4 total. And although I love Stephen King, it's still not technically original content. And I just feel like we're in this era and this cycle right now of like, oh, that movie did well, let's do another one. Let's go ahead and talk about my favorite top 10 horror remakes that I think were done really well. Obviously, I'm not saying that these are done better than the originals. I'm not saying that at all.
Sorry, you busy?
Some of these I do believe are better than the originals, and I'll say which ones, but there's really like one or two on the list because the originals are still great, but I think these are just remakes that are done really well and can kind of stand on their own. And some of these you might not even know are remakes because they're that well done, in my opinion. But of course, it is just my opinion. So feel free to disagree with me in the comments and share your own favorite horror remakes. Here we go. And these are also not in any order, by the way. Number 1 is It. Now, I am not a huge fan of the original It, the TV kind of series, 2-part series. Not a huge fan. I think the movie remake was amazing, and I'm very excited. I know I just dogged on remakes and stuff about and included It in that, but I'm very excited for part 2, and I think a lot of people are. It's gonna be interesting to see them as adults, and I think the casting is just probably some of the best casting I've ever seen in a sequel. Anyway, I think the remake was done really well. I know it was very hyped, and I know there are still people, there's always gonna be people who aren't gonna like a super hyped film, but I think it's just because I already didn't really like the original, so for me it could only go up, and I think it did a really good job. I think it was genuinely scary and a good storyline. Next up, we have 13 Ghosts. Now, this one is controversial because, as you remember, it is low rated on Rotten Tomatoes, which again, I know how it works now and I understand the rating system. I don't trust Rotten Tomatoes, I never have, but now I really don't, now that I know. So given that, I think within the horror community, a lot of people are really big fans of the remake of 13 Ghosts because it's just kind of one of those classics. It's like early 2000s vibes. I just really, really love it. It's definitely one that's more sentimental to me, but still, I think it's a really fantastic film. Next up is a movie that I think is better than the original because I simply just don't think it's as, the original is not as scary as the remake, and that's saying a lot, and that is The Ring. I had to put The Ring on here, which it is of course a remake of Ring You, the Japanese version, and I mean, obviously it's my favorite horror film for a reason. I don't really need to go into it. I've talked about it before and like how much I love it, so you guys already know that. And I do think it is better than the original. I know that's like a controversial opinion, but I enjoyed it way more and genuinely think it's more scary than Ring You. Next is another controversial one, and that is Suspiria. I loved Suspiria. It's easily my favorite movie of 2018, and I know that's a big statement, but it was just so unique and different, and I know it's completely different from the original. It's horrifying. They did horror so well and just like weird so well. It's just like a whole experience that you're going through watching this film. It's not like you're just a bystander watching it. It's, oh my god. And the fact that like the whole cast is almost all female, including the doctor in it, played by Tilda Swinton. Amazing. Tons of people that don't like it, especially if they were really connected and like loved the original. I think sometimes, based on my Pet Sematary review, if you watch that, sometimes it is hard to accept a remake when it's so different, and I get that obviously, but given that I saw this one first, I think that really helped me appreciate it so much more as its own film and it, like a standalone separate from the original, and like not thinking of it as a remake and thinking of it as its own movie. Next up, we have Evil Dead. I think this one is really great. It's obviously not a direct remake, but it is fantastic. I think the newer one, the newer version, just did gore really well, and it was still scary and creepy. I just think they caught the aura of Evil Dead without the campiness, and they made it like a true modern day horror film, and I really liked that. Next, House on Haunted Hill. This is going to be, again, one that is very much my opinion, and I don't think I'm in the majority. Again, I'm not saying it's better than the original, not saying that at all. I think it's a really good kind of cheesy horror film, and again, it's kind of early 2000s vibes, and I love the early 2000s for horror. It's one of my favorite decades easily, so I might be a little bit biased to any movie created within that decade, but House on Haunted Hill is just I wouldn't even call it a guilty pleasure because, like I said in the past, I don't believe in that. I believe in just liking what you like, right? And it's one that I've seen a ton of times and I never really get tired of it. In fact, now that I'm talking about it, I kind of want to watch it today. I just think it's creepy and I don't know, it has good horror vibes in it. That was really cringy, I'm sorry. The next one, technically not a remake, but I'm gonna throw it in this anyway because I wanted to have 10. There's 2 in here that are technically not remakes, but this one is technically a sequel and definitely going to be on a lot of people's worst remake lists. But you know, that's why we're here. We're all sharing our opinions. We can all accept we like different things and that's okay. So don't judge me. Blair Witch. I know. I'm one of those weirdos that really liked the remake. I might have even given it a negative review, but sometimes there's that phenomenon that happens when it sits with you for a while and you just keep thinking about it and you're like, you know what? Really wasn't that bad. Blair Witch, for me, the new one, is definitely one of those movies. I still really like it, and I think, you know what it is? I'm a little bit biased to like camping woodsy movies, and I'm actually gonna be doing a whole video on my favorite camping woods movies because I have looked for so many lists and there are plenty online, but I don't know if there's any on YouTube. So I just want to share my preferences because I love camping a lot. And so I love movies that are set within the woods and, you know, revolve around camping or stuff like that. So for me, Blair Witch was a good movie. I really, really liked the end. I feel like that redeemed it. I think it's scary and it still has the atmosphere of the original in my opinion, but like more modern obviously with the drones and things, which is kind of cheesy. Next up, The Hills Have Eyes. Now this is one of those that is a highly disturbing movie for many reasons, and I really love the remake. Again, I think it's early 2000s. This is again one that I've watched so many times when I was in high school and just was really in love with the movie. Again, it's kind of a camping style even though they're in the desert, which I am going to the desert in like a week, so wish me luck. But I just really like this movie. I think it was done really well and I think a lot of people really enjoyed this remake as well. Let me know if you're in that group down below. Next we have one that is equally as good as the original. I love both so much, and that is Funny Games. I think the remake was so successful in capturing the original. Like it was very much almost like a direct remake. Again, another really disturbing film that is very suspenseful and highly disturbing, so warning if you have not seen it yet or don't know anything about it, it is one of those movies. But it's again one that's done really well. It's actually another exception to my rule, I guess, that I just don't like home invasion movies, but this is one that is successful for me and I really, really love it, and it feels so real that I believe it and I feel like it could actually happen, so it's very scary and very traumatizing. And the last movie on this list of remakes is, again, not so much a remake, but I'm not gonna say anything in case you haven't seen it, but I think most people know what it is at this point, but The Thing. So The Thing was remade with Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, is actually one of my favorite movies of all time, and so I was really excited for the remake, and I think it was fantastic. Again, they made it more modern day and I really, really loved it. Again, not a direct remake by any means, and if you know what it is, you know. If you know, you know. So those are all of my top 10 horror remakes. I'd love to hear your favorite horror remakes that have been done down below, including sequels, I guess, if you want to do that too, since, you know, we're kind of ranting a little bit about sequels and remakes in this video. And also let me know your thoughts overall about remakes. How do you feel about them? Do you feel like we're in the era of remakes, or do you feel like there's enough original content coming out that you just don't agree? Let me know down below, and make sure you check out Shudder as well. Sign up for the 30-day free trial using Possess30 to get it. You can't, I mean, what's there to lose with a 30-day free trial? You can cancel anytime, so just use my code, sign up for Shudder for 30 days. I guarantee you're gonna fall in love with it. They have amazing content on there. I watch the stuff on there all the time. There's some great gems on there. If you want a Shudder video, like sharing my favorite gems on there that I've discovered, I can definitely do that. But anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.